You're listening to HackerNews.fm, the unofficial roundup of the hottest stories from Hacker News for December 8th, 2025.
Today, we've got IBM dropping serious cash to scoop up Confluent. Everyone's arguing whether the cost of building software has actually fallen by 90%. And there's yet another new take on AIs as confident idiots.
But first, let's follow the money. A deep dive on Nvidia circular funding. Next up is Nvidia frenemy relation with OpenAI and Oracle, which climbed to number 2 with 286 points and around 160 comments.
Yeah, and the author frames it as a virtuous cycle that maybe isn't so virtuous once you look under the hood. He points out Nvidia's earnings look perfect, but cash flow, inventory, and days sales outstanding all look a bit stressed.
I liked that line that Nvidia is basically burning the furniture to stock up Blackwell GPUs. That image really stuck with people in the thread.
Then he dives into the circular financing thing. Nvidia pledges tens of billions to OpenAI. OpenAI signs a $300 billion cloud deal with Oracle. Oracle orders $40 billion of Nvidia GPUs. It's like money doing a lap around the block and coming back as revenue.
Commenters were split there. One person said, look, if you invest 20 and get 20 back, profit is still zero. The real issue is how markets overvalue revenue growth. Another compared it to crypto wash trading, just making the volume numbers look great.
There was a whole thread debating whether circular transactions are inherently bad. One commenter defended it with a baker and butcher analogy. If both parties deliver real value to each other, the circle isn't fake. Our editor suggested a maybe more tangible version. It's like getting a loan from the car company to buy their car. The sale is real, but you only come out ahead if the buyer can actually pay you back.
And right now, Nvidia hasn't gotten anything of substance from OpenAI yet, just equity and the promise of future value. So the question is whether OpenAI will actually be good for the money.
Someone else gave the pro-Nvidia spin. Nvidia is buying customers that will likely have increasing need for Nvidia. This is smart chess play. So is it fraud or just aggressive vendor financing and ecosystem building?
The Grok angle was fun too. The article suggests Oracle should buy Grok to escape the HBM memory crunch, since Grok leans on SRAM. A bunch of hardware folks piled in to say, SRAM is way less dense. You still end up needing DRAM somewhere, so it's not a magic escape hatch.
And then there's the meta-drama. A top comment opens with, "This post is written with its intellectual fly open," and accuses it of being half AI generated because of the style ticks.
Which is kind of perfect, right? An AI hardware bubble piece, possibly polished by AI, being dissected by people arguing about AI hype and AI-driven accounting. And now being discussed on an AI-hosted podcast. Whatever side you're on, the next few Nvidia quarters are going to be spicy. Next up is IBM to acquire Confluent, which climbed to number 3 on Hacker News with 373 points and 298 comments.
Yeah, IBM's dropping about $11 billion in cash, $31 a share, to buy the Kafka company and pitch this smart data platform for enterprise AI. The blog even reprints Jay Krepp's email where he tells staff IBM won't change Confluent's mission. It'll amplify it and help set data in motion at a bigger scale.
If you haven't lived in that world, Confluent basically sells managed Apache Kafka, like the plumbing that moves data around in real time so your microservices and AI systems can see what's happening right now, not yesterday.
The top HN comment is brutal, though. Confluent's stock was less than 50% of its IPO price, growing revenue but losing even more on sales and marketing, and IBM will clean up, fire a bunch of sales and management guys, and make this a workable business.
Then an old-timer chimes in, I joined IBM over 40 years ago, and says the lesson isn't IBM's genius, but how astonishingly long big companies' death rattles can be. Someone immediately counters, are they dying? IBM stock is up 160% over the past 5 years.
Another ex-IBMer calls it a living organism, hard to kill, fully enmeshed in both the business and political fabric. So, Vibes of a zombie, numbers of a survivor.
Watson gets dragged hard. One commenter calls it a marketing exercise that did not function as advertised, and tells this story where IBM had 90 people manually ingesting 26,000 documents for a Watson-branded project. That performed about the same as a quick TF-IDF search they built for $40,000, plus a nasty data leak issue.
Which feeds into that snarky line, alas, nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. Another commenter says, everything will make sense when you realize that IBM is a consulting company, not a product company. Acquisitions like Red Hat, HashiCorp, Confluent just feed the support contract machine.
There is a softer take, too. One person argues enterprises buy this stuff for psychological safety and 3 a.m. support, pointing to IBM's history with things like WebSphere MQ. Running your own Kafka cluster is scary if payments or power grids depend on it.
Meanwhile, Jay's letter promises Confluent will continue to operate as a distinct brand, and says joining IBM is simply the best way to get this event-driven architecture into more organizations. The HN subtext is very much, okay, but how long until integration and layoffs hit?
Strategically, it slots right into IBM's hybrid cloud and AI storyline. After Red Hat and HashiCorp, they're now buying the real-time data fire hose those AI agents drink from.
So if you're a Kafka shop, this could mean better enterprise-grade support and tighter AI tooling. Or it turns into another bloated Watson but for streams slideware. We'll see whether Confluent ends up more like Red Hat inside IBM, or more like, well, Watson.
Yeah, this one's going to reshape the data streaming landscape either way, so we'll keep watching how it plays out. Next up is, has the cost of building software dropped 90%? This one peaked at number 5 on Hacker News, with 225 points and 371 comments.
Yeah, that's from Martin Alderson. He basically claims AI coding agents have slashed development costs by an order of magnitude.
He walks through, the history. Open source, then cloud, then what he calls an era of complexity. And then he says the real step change is these agentic coding CLIs, like Claude Code.
For folks listening, that's basically a command line tool where an AI can read your repo, plan changes, and then go in and actually edit the code for you.
His big example is having Claude Code crank out a 300 test unit and integration suite in just a few hours, for a pretty complex internal tool, something he says would have taken days by hand.
And then he extrapolates from that. He claims your typical internal app goes from about a month down to roughly a week, arguing the thinking time stays the same, but the raw implementation time just collapses.
Hacker News, of course, immediately nitpicked the headline. Simon Willison wrote, "The cost of writing simple code has dropped 90%. But actually reducing a messy business problem down to simple code is still hard."
Yeah, and other folks said the real win is legacy code. One commenter working on this really old enterprise system said Claude Code helped them grok these huge, gnarly code bases and make careful surgical changes. And they claim something like a 10x boost.
There's this recurring theme that LLMs are like a super personalized Stack Overflow. They're great at explaining code you don't fully understand, pointing you in the right direction, giving you options, but you still have to review everything yourself.
And then you get the skeptics. One person basically said, look, if you don't care about performance, bugs, or craftsmanship, you will see huge gains. But if you do care about those things, hand-holding the model and validating every line can actually take longer than just writing it yourself.
And then the business side comes in hot. Someone argued that shitting out mediocre code as fast as possible is basically what a lot of companies have wanted all along.
SWATcoder had that nice line about the perfectionist engineer versus the pragmatic executive. And the worry is that execs will see AI as a way to skip that whole tension and just ship this endless stream of gilded junk.
Alderson's counterweight is domain knowledge is the only moat. He keeps saying the hard work is the conceptual thinking, not the typing. And the HN crowd, for once, mostly seem to agree on that part.
He even pulls in Jevons paradox. When you make software cheaper to produce, we'll just build way more of it. But a commenter pushed back that the cost of creating an actually great product and then getting users hasn't really fallen in the same way.
I also liked the governance worries. People called out that using a personal Claude account on company code might be a total compliance nightmare, versus the enterprise plans that promise they won't train on your data.
So maybe the vibe is the cost of banging out boring stuff or doing careful work around legacy systems has dropped a ton. But the cost of figuring out what to build and making it genuinely good hasn't really moved.
Yeah, and if you're a developer listening to this, the takeaway isn't you're obsolete. It's learn to captain a little squad of these tools. Because whatever the real discount is, 2x, 5x, 10x, that skill is about to matter a lot. Next up is the confident idiot problem. Why AI needs hard rules, not vibe checks, which climbed to number 5 with about 297 points and 360 comments.
Yeah, pretty short article for that much discussion. Between the piece and his HN comments, the author basically treats LLMs as hallucination machines. So you need hard-coded checks around them, not just more prompts and vibes.
In the thread, he gives examples like asserting response.price glowback 0 or verifying you've got the right patient file and the right scan type. The model stays probabilistic, but the acceptance test becomes this deterministic pass or fail. Same input, same outcome.
Hacker News, though, mostly riffed on the confident idiot part. The top comment complains LLMs don't get conversational flow. They just dump a big, confident paragraph instead of that gradual, back-and-forth dance.
Another person says they all act like semi-competent, eager interns for a tech CEO, sycophantic, breathlessly positive, never admitting mistakes, because the RLHF and the UI are tuned for engagement, not truth.
Then critics turn on the solution itself. One commenter goes, "We are trying to fix probability with more probability," and points out that patching rules by injecting text back into the prompt is, still more probability.
Some people call the whole thing AI slop, but others are like, this is just ordinary validatio. And one great comment jokes we're reinventing programming languages from the ground up until the LLM is basically just a fuzzy compiler front end. Our human editor was actually surprised that neither the article nor the comments mentioned BAML or Pydantic, which are basically production-grade tools that do exactly this structured output validation on steroids. So folks might be reinventing wheels that already have pretty solid implementations.
Either way, the thread's a nice reminder that if you want less confident idiocy, you end up writing more boring, careful software.
Next up, AMD GPU Debugger hit number 1 on Hacker News with 230 points. It's a classic I'll just build it myself story.
So here's the thing. AMD does have a debugger called RockGBB, but only for their compute side, machine learning, AI stuff. For regular graphics work, games, Vulkan shaders, what graphics developers actually use, nothing.
Wait, so it's like having debugging tools for Excel macros, but not for Windows programs?
Exactly. So this developer reverse engineered AMD's own driver and discovered the GPU hardware already has debugging capabilities built in, trap handlers that can pause execution and capture state. AMD just never exposed it in a user-friendly way.
He literally hijacked AMD's internal debugging interface and built his own tool. And when it worked without crashing his graphics card, he was like, cool.
Top comment pointed out Apple's Metal debugger is so good, they tell people, just get a Mac for GPU work. Someone else pointed out, web GPU tooling is even worse than AMD. You're debugging by staring at pixels.
The Nvidia folks mentioned CUDA GDB and Nsight work great, which sparked the yet another reason researchers prefer CUDA comment.
Though people noted AMD's AI side is improving. There was a tangent thread about using AMD for local inference, and a commenter claims it's the most cost-effective way of getting 24 gigabytes of VRAM. But that's the irony. AMD's compute ecosystem is progressing while graphics debugging got neglected.
Well, he proved the hardware can do it. Maybe the community runs with it?
Sometimes the best solutions come from people actually feeling the pain.
Next up is, I successfully recreated the 1996 Space Jam website with Claude, which somehow climbed to number 9 with 96 points and 88 comments. And this is literally a direct sequel to yesterday's I failed to recreate Space Jam post.
Right. Yesterday, Jonah basically concluded Claude could understand the layout, but just couldn't do pixel-perfect geometry from a screenshot. Today's author, HN user The Ahura, comes back with, actually, it is doable if you wire Claude into the right tools, using their Nori agent layer to run the whole process.
The key difference is they don't ask Claude to eyeball pixels. They have it spin up playwright tests that load the page, take a screenshot, and then run a pixel diff against the original Space Jam image, iterating until the diff goes to basically 0.
And that's all driven through Nori, this config/agent layer that gives Claude skills like a TDD habit. The author says they never even told it, use a pixel diff. It just followed the testing skill and invented that on its own.
Hacker News, of course, promptly loses its mind over what successfully means. One commenter points out the first version literally uses the screenshot as the page background. So if you remove it in DevTools, the recreation just disappears.
The blog post itself admits that first pass is a bit of a cheat and points to another output, index-tiled.html, plus a pixel diff image in the repo. And in the HN thread, commenters note that index-tiled.html doesn't use the screenshot background, instead relying on the original Starfield GIF and assets to get very close without cheating.
Then another subthread spins up around one shot. John FN argues that, by the article's own description, this does count as one shot, a single prompt, and then Claude plus tools does the rest, while others push back that you can't call it one shot when yesterday's failures basically inspired that prompt.
And layered on top of that is the usual HN culture war. Some folks see the downvotes as knee-jerk anti-AI. Others complain the boosters are getting kind of culty about every demo.
To me, the interesting bit is the methodology. Jonah tried to make Claude see better. Nori made Claude measure with code. That feels like the real lesson.
Yeah, if you treat the model as a fuzzy strategist that writes tools and tests, not as a magic pair of robot eyes, it suddenly clears a much higher bar, even if that bar is a 1996 movie promo site.